Click on the subscribe button, especially the bell on the right side. Otherwise, you will miss the latest videos.
Yes, sir.
So we will welcome doubts maybe in the later half, not right from the beginning. Otherwise, we will come into a jumble. Let me tell some basics of astrology,
Yes, sir.
and then we will invite your doubts. Okay. So maybe I think for 1 hour up to say 11 o'clock, I will tell whatever I want to tell. And after that, we invite. Right?
ठीक है सर अपन चालू कर सकते हैं सर
चालू करें 10 हो गए हैं सो गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबॉडी वेलकम एंड नाउ वी विल स्टार्ट द टॉपिक गिवन टू मी टुडे इज द बेसिक एस्ट्रोलॉजी राइट एंड I always repeat my basic foundation stress is that planets behave exactly as human being behaves under the same circumstances. This sentence I must have repeated in the Dasha also, in Dasha class. I am again repeating it. Because in Dasha also, I said, in Dasha, what you do? You try to assess and predict that how a planet will behave during its period. That is Dasha. And when you have to predict or assess somebody's behavior, you should know who he is. You have to identify him, understand him, and then only you can say what he will behave, how he will behave. Whether he is my friend, he is my enemy, he is neutral, whatever it is. So these are the basics of astrology. You have to understand the planets. What we have got, what are the tools we have with us in astrology. Our tools are 12 sign, Aries Taurus, 12 houses, and 9 planets. So, I am an engineer. So, until I understand my tools, I cannot use them. Same way, as you say, army man, if he does not know his weapons, he cannot use them. So, my stress always is you must understand your tools. And then you know how he will behave. Our tools, like a planet, we have to judge in what condition he is. Because a planet will be occupying a house. I must know what is a house, what is this house. It should be a sign in that house. So we should know what is this sign. Is he friendly to him? Sign is like a place. We have described sign. Like Aries represents jungles, forest, all these things like this. I need not repeat them. So I have to understand. The first thing in our human life also is to understand who is my friend and who is my enemy, who is neutral to me, right? So this way, let us first understand. I think you know the natural friendship and enmity or neutral. You have learned, all of you? Or
Yes,
should
sir.
I explain it again?
Yes, sir. You can just go for a brief explanation.
Yes,
One line.
brief. I will give. Now, how I am starting? That the first important thing is friendship and enmity. Like if you are sitting in a friend's house, you are happy. So you should know whether this house or this sign is friend to him, to a planet which I am talking. Now this has been given by sage Satyacharya. He has explained it very well. This is called Satyacharya method. His method is, this gives a lot of information. These basics, his method is that mark the Mool Trikona sign of a planet. And from its Mool Trikona, the sign in Upachaya houses 1 and 7, where he is sitting, Mool Trikona sign, 1 and 7 are enemies. Okay? And rest are his friends. Rest sign are his friends. Apart from that, his sign of exaltation is also a friend. So now we know which sign are friend, which sign are enemies. Any sign which appears twice as a friend or as an enemy is confirmed. Twice as a friend means friend. Only once, then it is neutral. Okay? And according to that, we can prepare a table and find out the friends and enemies of any planet. Like for Sun, Moon, Mars and Jupiter are his friends, and Venus and Saturn are his enemies, and neutral is Mercury. What does it mean? That if Sun is placed in the sign of Saturn, he is in the house of an enemy and not comfortable. Forget that we celebrate Makar Sankranti. It is the horoscope we are talking. When Sun is sitting there, so he is in the sign of enemies. This way, we have also have understood that from Mool Trikona, These signs are enemies. Upcha sign. And we have praised Upcha always. Now a question comes, can I take Upcha from his placement in the horoscope? Yes. This is the point I wanted to convey. From the Satyacharya method, we have understood that these signs are enemies. Okay. From this talk, we find some planets are mutually enemy. And in a horoscope, our bad houses are considered as trick houses. That is 6, 8, 12. Right? So, there are combination of two planets which are mutually enemy in the natural way. These set are Mars and Mercury. What I mean, if the Lagna rising belongs to Mars, Mercury becomes a malefic. So when you see a horoscope with Mars sign as Lagna, our eyes must go to Mercury immediately. That he is the spoiler. If this sign of Mercury is rising, then Mars is the spoiler. Our eyes should go to Mars. You can check it again, like say, Gemini is rising, sign of Mercury. Then what is Mars? Mars becomes 6th Lord and 11th Lord. Two of the three Shaddai. Parashara said 3, 6, 11 are always malefic, lords of 3, 6, 11. If Mars is rising, so Mercury becomes, say, Aries is rising, then Mercury is the lord of 3rd and 6th. And normally, these pair do harm to that horoscope. Wherever they go, whenever their dasha comes, whichever planet they are conjunct, they will do the damage. Okay. Second pair is Venus and Jupiter. See, I am giving a shortcut grasp. Immediately you can see. Venus and Jupiter. So if Venus is rising, beware of Jupiter. If Jupiter sign is rising, beware of Venus. They will do harm. Whatever, wherever they are gone, wherever they are sitting, watch it. And the third pair is Saturn along with Moon and Sun. Saturn Sun, Saturn Moon. Okay. Now in this pair, you see, whenever Moon sign is rising, Saturn becomes Lord of 7th and 8th. I am not saying as a general principle, but normally such people have a bad marriage. Problems in the marriage. You see the combination? Like Mercury rising during Mars or Mars related dashas, planets related to Mars, he will fall ill. ठीक है sir? So this was my first topic. I think it is of importance and you will make use of it.
सर
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
सर एक सवाल था सर इसमें.
जी.
What if the Mars or Mercury become dispositor of each other in any of these ascendants?
ठीक है, बता रहा हूं ना, वो मैंने दशा में भी बताया था that company also matters. Company spoils you or lifts you. So when they are mutually giving problem, means a bad planet is giving problem to the Lord of Ascendant also. So it will give problem to your body. Wherever they are sitting, those houses will be harmed. Like for Mars, Mercury is the troublemaker. Mars is not the troublemaker. Because Mars is Lord of Ascendant. He will try to protect. And Mercury will do the harm. Like if they are conjoined together. See, I am not going into detailed astrology here. I am giving you the first principle. There can be so many variations. But this is one rule. You understand? It's a very sharp, straight rule. Whenever a horoscope comes to you, suppose Jupiter is the ascendant, Lord of Ascendant, your eyes should go to Venus. Isn't it?
Yes.
What is your ascendant?
Mine Libra.
Libra. So Jupiter is a bad planet for you. It's such a simple things I am giving today.
Yes.
Okay? Because you see, you have to understand who is the friend, who is the enemy. And then only you can see. Because any planet, when you try to decipher, it gets its shape or color changed by about 18 things. You have not done that exercise up till now. How the planet's color or the things, the significations gets affected. How it changes. See, I'll tell you another. Now, only these three things. Now you see a house. House is fixed. That first house is my Lagna. Okay. How it is changing? The sign occupied in Lagna, placed in Lagna, the thing is changed. First house is changed. How it is occupied by another planet, some other planet. Is he in a friendly sign or in a unfriendly enemy sign? Now you see, people say, I have Saturn in Lagna and is in a friendly sign, Gemini. So it is not that harmful because this Shani Maharaj is sitting in friend's house. He is happy. So our first thing is to see. Okay. I will drag it further also, little bit. Like you say, I am sitting in a friend's house with a friend. What is your position?
Agree.
I am sitting in a friend's house alone. I am sitting in a friend's house with an enemy. Now you are afraid. You are in a protective mood. On top of this, the aspects are very, very important. I say aspect is more important than conjunction even. Sometimes. Because in aspect, that planet who is aspecting is not coming to that house, but he is influencing that house. Like there is a saying somewhere that USA need not go anywhere to spoil that country. His aspect is enough. Okay? And Indians, wherever they go, they will either spoil that country or lift that. They have to go there. So this is the difference between conjunction and aspect. So aspect, that planet is not involved in the matters of that house, but he is influencing it. Okay, so this way, this is our first topic, that we must understand what is the condition of the planet. And now this condition depends upon the house and the sign also. Sign is via this relationship. Sometimes people do a mistake. Like moon is not enemy. Moon do not consider any planet as enemy. All are friend or neutral. Okay. So moon can sit any house. He will be either in a friendly house or in a neutral house. Now, Mercury takes moon as his enemy, serious enemy, bitter enemy. So if moon goes to the house of Mercury, moon is going to a house of neutral, not enemy, neutral, sum. When Mercury comes to Cancer, then he is in the house of bitter enemy. So it is what people normally do, sometime interpret, that when moon is in the house of Mercury, he is in an enemy's house. No. Please, don't do that. I have seen so many, even writers writing this. So it is the mental condition of the planet, what he thinks the house owner is to him. The sign owner, what is he? Okay, this way. Now, in this context only, we must understand the avastha of the planet. Have you learnt avasthas? No, not much. The
Not
important, pardon?
Not much, not much.
Not much. I will give that. There are so many types of avasthas. Baladi avastha, Deeptadi, Muditadi avastha, Lajjitadi avastha, Shayanadi avastha. These are all are not very important. I consider only Deeptadi and the Lajjitadi avastha as important, and which can be easily applied. Easily applied, because Shayanadi Avastha, etc., is very difficult to calculate, and the method of calculation is also long and not very clear still. So I will discuss only Deeptadi and Lajjitadi Avastha. Deeptadi Avasthas first. I don't remember it. I know the gist, but I don't remember the verbatim definitions. So you can note it down. First is Deepta Avastha. Deepta is like diya jal raha hai, illuminous, full of light. And when a planet, when it is achieved, when a planet is in exaltation or in Mool Trikon sign, it is called Deeptadi Avastha. Now, he is full of energy. See the meaning now. When a planet is in exaltation, he is full of energy. Now, this energy can be in a right direction or in the wrong direction. Never be elated with a exalted planet. He can ruin you. Also, if his energies are directed in a bad direction. What my meaning for an exaltation planet is that he is full of ego. He thinks himself great in that field. Or the environment governed by that planet is favorable to him. Like sun is exalted, he will be full of ego as a king. He will consider himself a king. But the department is authority, the government or sun. So he will do good with people in authority, in government. He can do work well with them. Okay? That is my meaning. But the classic meaning is that it will give him wealth, they all blah, blah, authority, courage. All these things you can write for a exalted planet. But the main thing which you should remember, it gives ego, ahankar, and it can be ruinous also. It can ruin you. Next is swastha or stable. Stable avastha. When a planet is in own sign, when it is in own sign, he is residing in his own house, because any planet, when he owns a house, he is the lord of the house also, and he is the owner of the house. Now, in a daily life, you compare it. If you are an owner of a house and you have not rented it out, you are living there, so you will take best care of the house. So whichever house it is, suppose it's a seventh house and seventh lord is sitting there, you will take care of your marriage like anything, because it is your own house now. So that planet will take care of the marriage or that house. I can say now, classics, right? It is a very good period, all round success, education, people will love you, all these things, blah, blah, everything is there. But we must catch what it is, that where he is sitting, that house will prosperous, will be prosperous. And he will always be aspecting 7th to that. 7th house from there. Now, what is the 7th aspect, my dear friends? What is the 7th aspect?
It is a Shakti of that house. Shiva and Shakti.
Shiva and Shakti. She has given the correct meaning. Okay? 7th house from any house is the Shakti, is the strength. So any planet, when he is in own house, he is giving strength to the 7th house. Because he is in a good position. Okay. It will be very nice if I have a horoscope where my 7th Lord is in 7th house. So my wife is giving me Shakti. Aspecting Lagna. But
Yes.
fortunately, I don't have that combination. I use the word fortunately. What will happen? She is controlling you, giving Shakti. Okay? Like 9th Lord is in 9th. Your dharam, religion, father, everything, they get strength. But your father is aspecting your courage. Not you, but your younger brothers and sisters. So he is giving, father is giving his Shakti to your younger siblings. I think I have made it clear. So instead of just reading these Diptadi avastas, try to understand the meaning. Okay? Swasth or the stable. Third is Mudit. Mudit avastha, that is delighted. Now what happens when it occurs? When a planet is in a friend's house. Is in a friend's house. So he is enjoying the things of that house. See, it is very vital. Please understand the clear meaning. He is enjoying the fruits of that house because he is a friend's house. So a planet, when he is in a friend's house, he enjoys the fruits of that house. Suppose he is in 7th house. This is partnership, wife, husband, spouse, everything. So during that planet, you will enjoy the fruits of 7th house. Okay? You will have excellent happiness from your friends, from your partners, from your wife. Excellent happiness. If a planet is in a friend's house, in 5th house, so during his period, that planet will give you fruits of intelligence, fruits of learning, because 5th house, fruits of children. You will enjoy from your children. See what's very deep meaning is there. Don't just read the classic that it will give you money, it will give you lavish health and this and that, all blah blah. It depends upon each house and to be modified by each planet. Okay. Now I'm taking it fast. Then is Shant. Fourth avastha is Shant, at peace, at rest. Okay. Now this is also in a friend's house. Okay, I committed a mistake. Mudit or delighted when a planet is in a fast friend house. And Shant is when he is in a friend's house. You can make the difference when he is delighted and when he is quiet. Okay. So when he is delighted, fast friend, then he is giving everything of that house. In a friend's house also, he will give everything of that house, but the quantity or the quality will be little less. That's all. Fifth avastha is Deen. Deen avastha means he is either not rich, not very poor. Deen avastha. It happens when the planet is in a house of a neutral planet. So now what happens? This is a very interesting position. A planet is neutral. He has got no color on him. It's colorless, like water. And whatever color is added to him, he will take that color, if any color is added. If there is no color added, means no other conjunction with a planet, any other planet, no aspect. If there is nothing, then what color will come? The color of the sign will come. If it is aspected by a planet or in conjunct with a planet, so that planet will be in enemy house or in friend's house. Right? It is not that both will be in the neutral house. No, it is not possible. One will be enemy or friend or something. One is some neutral. So here, the sign becomes important. Like in fifth house, for children, if it is a barren sign and a planet is there, which is neutral to that sign, so the barren sign will be prominent. If it is a fruitful sign, the fruitful sign will be prominent. That planet also becomes fruitful. Okay, so this is also important. Sixth is Dukhi. Dukhi means tormented. It happens when the planet is in enemy sign. Ab dukhi hai. In enemy house, what you will do? You will try to run away. May escape somehow. So, if it is a relevant house, you will leave that house. Suppose it is fourth house and a planet is in an enemy sign in fourth house. You try to leave that house and run away. You may desert your mother. You may leave your house and run away. Like our Pandyaji, he said, I am not going to stay in India, I am running away. So fourth house has an enemy influence. Means when an enemy planet is there, so you are deserting this house. Enemy planet in ninth house, you will desert your father or your Dharam. See, Saral Jyotish. Simply you see, whichever house you have a planet in enemy sign, so that planet will desert that house. ठीक है भैया? Now next, our 7th condition is vikal, grief stricken. Vikal. Now you understand this meaning. Vikal, dukhi hai. It happens when a planet is associated with enemy. Like earlier I said, enemy is sitting with a planet. See the difference. When a planet is in an enemy sign, then it deserts it. When an enemy is sitting there with him, he is not able to do anything. So I will tell you a very interesting story, interesting explanation, which you can understand and get the meaning permanently. In Hindi, there are two words. One is vikal and the other is krodhit. See, when you are sitting with the enemy, you can be krodhit also, but they have used the word vikal. What is the difference between them? That if you abuse your wife, use dirty words, and she gets angry and take good care of you, then you are vikal, because you are not able to do anything. Okay? And if your wife, you have said something, she has taken revenge, so she is krodhit. Krodhit is when you can take revenge. Vikal is बेचारा हो गया, मैं कुछ नहीं कर पा रहा. If you hit your son, abuse him, he will go and hit the dog. He is still krodhit. He is krodhit. So now I think you understand what is this condition vikal. That you are not able to do anything. Besahara. So classics give the meaning, friends desert you, you are not, your works are not done, you feel dejected, all these things. But I think now you get the meaning. What a vikal person will do. Dukhi was different. Okay. So this was 7th condition. 8th is khal. Khal. Khal means wicked. There is a khal yoga also. The third lord, in exchange with any other lord, is a khal yoga that gives wickedness. But what is this in avastha? Khal means when the planet is in the sign of a malefic. sign of a malefic. Now, this is a very general statement, but still, sign of a malefic. That malefic can be a good planet or Lord of Lagna also. Will we call them khal again? No. But still, it gives certain tendencies of wickedness. What I will say, sign of a malefic makes you do hard work. Benefic signs are soft. They do not ask you to do so much work or take hard work. Okay. So what happens for khal? There is something crookedness in the mind. And due to that crookedness, you have to suffer. You will lose something because of your crookedness or wickedness. Because truth always prevails. Our Hindu philosophy says कि कर्म का फल मिल जाएगा. अब ये कब मिलेगा मुझे नहीं पता यार, अगली जन्म में मिलेगा. यही तो हमारी गलत फिलॉसफी हुई ना. I am not worried about my अगला जन्म because I will not see it. So, but it gives the result. Okay? And the last Diptadi Avastha is Krudh. Krodhit or angered. This I have already explained. The difference between Vikal and Krodhit. Now in Krodhit, you can do something still if power is left. Because what is Krodhit? It is with sun. When a planet is combust, it is called Krodhit. But combust meaning is not that easy to understand. Have we discussed combustion earlier? No?
No, sir, not much.
Not much? What we had discussed?
Sir, in basic one, we learnt about combustion.
That is the degrees only. What is the result of combustion?
No, we have not discussed.
Okay. I will touch it also. Yes.
भाई योगा वाले सेशन में बताया था कंबर्जन मींस.
मैंने बताया था?
नहीं सर, रोहित सर ने बताया था.
चलो.
Sir, 2 lines.
Okay, I think my explanation is little different. That is not in classics.
Explanation था जिसके अंदर the materiality is taken
Yes.
away, but the nature is retained. That's your explanation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is my explanation. So here also, I wanted to say that only the material things are lost. Physical things are lost, which can be burnt by fire. Other things are not. So you are Krodhit. And what is sun? Sun is your father, religion, guru, all these things. So when a planet is with sun, classics says it gives a separation from father. Arey Baba, why? Why? I have not seen separation from father until your Lagna Lord is combust. Lagna Lord is combust or ninth Lord is combust. More so, if ninth Lord is combust, then sun is burning your father. Then you are going away from father. But you will have lot of regards for father. The material, emotional things that will not get burnt. So from the classic meaning, the more appropriate meaning is the krodhit avastha, where I am able to do something. Vikal, I am not able to do something. Okay? Now we come to the next avastha. That is lajjitadi avastha. And I have found this to be happening sometimes. First is lajjit adi, lajjit avastha. Lajjit, you know, ashamed, abuse means you have to cut a sorry figure. This happens, a planet is in lajjit avastha when it is in 5th house. Because when you feel lajjit, is your intelligence, your feelings, that is 5th house in association with a malefic. Like Sun, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, Mars, okay? Especially Saturn. But if Saturn is involved there in 5th house, himself, then it is not that lajjit avastha, but some movement comes. Lajjit avastha means sometime in your life you have to face humiliation. Check 5th house for humiliation. I have written an article on 5th house on this only. That is, I have written it in a different manner, like Sanak. Here he has used the word lajjit. I have used it in a way Sanak, Sanki, कि मेरे को ये करना ही करना है. कहते हैं ना मेरे, now he wants to drink alcohol. That is his sanak. Come what may, he will drink. If he is to do good work, that is also his sanak. I will help everybody. I will go to the hospital and distribute fruits to patients. That is also his sanak. That is all on the 5th house. When this sanak becomes bad, then you feel humiliated. When it is a bad sanak. Okay, I think I have explained it. Lajjitadi avastha. And this is with the association or aspect by a malefic on a planet in 5th house. Now he has not mentioned the benefics. So benefic sitting in 5th house, I will say even malefic sitting in 5th house, and another condition, association or aspect of another malefic. Please don't use it that a malefic is sitting in 5th house and you say it is a lajjit avastha. No. It has to be associated with another malefic by conjunction or aspect. Right? I'll go to the next. Garvit avastha. That is what I said here also. Garvit. That is when a planet is exalted. This I think I have already explained, that this is the ego. There Deeptadi, he has said Deeptadi, but the real meaning is Garvit. Shudit or hungry. These are almost given by different writers. Shudit or hungry, which when it occupies the house of an enemy and aspected or by an enemy. Now these two conditions, that he is in the house of enemy, we had earlier discussed it. Now he adds another dimension to it, that it is aspected by a enemy also. So Shudit, hungry. What is the meaning of this hungry? He is amidst all enemies. He's in an enemy house, aspected or associated by an enemy. So he is hungry. Hungry, the real meaning is he is in a deep sorrow. Right? Deep sorrow. And now where it is happening, which house he is in sorrow. So he is giving sorrow to that house also, to that sign. Next is Trista, thirsty. Thirsty. This condition is when he is in a Jalchar sign and aspected by a malefic. In the watery sign, now he is not able to drink water. He is not able to enjoy that sign because enemy is aspecting or associated with him. Even aspected will do the trick because aspect is more powerful, very powerful. Then fifth is delighted or mudit. This has earlier also come in the mudit avastha, that in the sign of a fast friend. In this lajjitadi avastha, this means that he is in the sign of a friend and aspected by a benefit, the double mudit. Then is shobhit, agitated. Agitated, this is like your combustion and aspected by enemy planet. So in these two avastas, two types of avastas, we have understood that these avastas are becoming more severe by an aspect of an enemy or a malefic planet. And it is toned down by the aspect of a benefic or association of a benefic or a friend. Right? So that means we have understood who are my friends, who are my enemies, which signs are friend, and combined how they affect the house. I think this is the sum total of talking of avastas and the friendship. And this will go a very long way to understand each house. You can try this way. Take every house, one by one, and see the sign there. Any planet sitting there or planet aspecting there. And try to see whether it is enemy's house, aspected by an enemy or a malefic. The gravity of the situation keeps on increasing. In astrology, 1 plus 1 is 11. It is not 2. It does not double. If an enemy sign, an enemy aspecting, it becomes 11 times. Enemy associated, it becomes 1011 times. Okay, this way the progression goes in astrology. Now, so this is the basic insight how to see a horoscope, that I have told you. This is the first step. Now you are free to ask the questions.
So there is a question from Varun. He says, can a planet be Shudit and Mudit in Lajjitadi Avastha?
No. These are two different things. Now you have what he is trying to say, that he is in a bad position. I am not using avastha now. I am not using the word avastha, but in a normal sense. He wants to say, suppose a planet is in enemy house or in a friend's house. तो मुदित में आ गया, first friend's house. But he is aspected by a enemy. The combination of these two avasthas. Now use your intelligence. Who is stronger? जब भी दो पहलवानों का युद्ध होता है तो हमको देखना है ना कौन सा बली है. Now he is in a friend's house, so he is capable of giving the fruits of that house. He is aspected by an enemy. That enemy is stopping him. That you cannot. I will fight you if you give. So what happens in such cases? See, always take this problem to a normal human life, everyday life, and find an answer. That he is ready to give everything. He is in a very happy position in a friend's house. Enemy is aspecting him. Now, who is that enemy? Can I control him? Can I beat him? Okay? Like, who is that enemy? Means 7th Lord, 9th Lord, 11th Lord. Means my bada bhai, 11th Lord, is trying to stop me from giving the fruits of that house. What you do in your daily life? Either you try to explain to your bada bhai, or you boycott him, or you beat him, or you fight him. So that is the situation. We have to gauge what is the strength. And mind you, both results will happen. He will give, he will stop. इसी को कहते हैं ना आधे में आके काम रुक गया. Both results will be faced. अच्छा, let the people prepare their question. Can I take 5 minutes break?
Sure, definitely, sir.
5 minutes. I will come in 5 minutes. Okay. Yes, I am back.
Sir, we have some questions.
Yes.
First is which avastha is more important? Which avastha gives more weight?
यार I am not saying you learn the avasthas by heart or by name. My purpose, I don't remember the names of the avasthas. Get the gist of it, and which I had said, check who is in friend's house, who is in enemy's house, association aspect of. You only have to remember the friendship table, who are friends. For that also, I give a small tip. It is not 100% valid, but a good tip. There are two groups of planets. One group is Sun, Moon, Mars, Jupiter. They are almost mutually friends, always. The other group is Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. They are always mutually friends. And between them, they are either enemies or neutral. So remember this tip, and do not remember the avasthas. Remember the gist of it. Any house, the significations you have to know. Like 5th house is intelligence. 9th house is your father, religion, everything. So many things. And apply it as in normal life. I will again repeat, don't remember the avasthas. It is not important. I do not want to give bookish knowledge. I think it will clarify, because I will also have to see the book. Which avastha is this? I don't remember. Okay. Yes.
Yes, definitely, sir. Next is about this khal,
Kali Yuga.
So again, I think it is the question which is there, but again, I think it's probably not well framed question right now, but I think question is more about this khal yuga. So probably
Yes. Kali Yuga, I said, classics say any lord exchanging sign with third lord is Kali Yuga. That planet, that is a Kali Yuga. Now here two planets are involved. Let us understand them. What is third? Why third has been taken? Third is your unconscious mind. Third house, that is why it is called, it is a house of hobbies. Unconsciously, whatever you do may not always be good. Like, I will explain third house again. Third house, we say courage. And why khal has come? Courage. That a malefic in third makes you courageous. Everybody says that. Right? Benefic aspect makes you courageous. Malefic aspect destroys the house, means you are not courageous. Okay. Now let us see what is courage. I always say, take astrology simply as the everyday human life. I'm deriving it from there only. So, when you will show courage, when you are under stress, under fire, people are beating you, you are being attacked, you have to show courage. So that is the house That is the khal house, house of courage. And I pray to God, don't make me courageous. This is the meaning. Because I should not have a situation in my life that I have to show courage. When I am attacked, then only I show courage. When I am in difficulty, okay. I think you got it. Third house.
Definitely.
Now link it to Khal Yuga. Any planet which exchanges sign with third lord, a Khal Yuga is caused. Means this sign of courage is going to some house, some sign. And that lord has come to khal sign, third. So where your courage has gone? To that house. Your unconscious mind has gone to that house, means your courage. Like I just saw the question that third and fourth house exchanging sign. This was the question frame.
Yes.
So your courage, your khal has gone to fourth house. That house is the house of properties, house of your mother, house of your happiness. I will say, you use khal to get happiness, or your khal, courage, has gone to your mother, towards your mother. So it is your horoscope, not your mother's horoscope, mind you. So you are courageous to your mother, towards your mother. Third lord in fourth. मदर से नहीं बनेगी. मदर को करेज दिखाओगे, प्रॉपर्टी में करेज दिखाओगे. There will be some dispute in property. I think I am explaining it. Get the meaning. What is third? And how it acts. Third has got so many meanings. But for Khal Yuga, it is connected with courage. Because it is your nature. It is not your brother or sister or your neighbors. It is your nature. Khal. Khal is nature. ठीक है साहब, next, please. Or you got more doubts? I think it is explained.
Yes. So there is a question from Sandhya. She is saying that please explain when to use natural benefic, natural malefic, or functional malefic and functional benefic using an example chart.
Example chart let Sandhya give, but I will explain first. See, in astrology, we have natural benefics and natural malefics. Everybody knows that. Now the question comes, functional. What is functional? It is for a specific horoscope. Natural is universal. So when we see a promise of a horoscope, we want to see whether this house is capable of giving me results or not. That we see the promise of a house. That time we use the natural malefics or natural benefics for our general reading. In that case, the Lord of the house and the Lord of Lagna is always benefic. In our promise calculation, thinking of promise. Now, Lordship makes a planet functional benefic or functional malefic for a particular horoscope. My recommendation is that when we work the dashas, Vimshotri, any other dasha, any dasha, we use the functional benefic and functional malefics at the time of dashas. Right? I think it explains. She can put a chart also, no problem. We will explain it.
So, like in Pandit Nehruji's chart, Venus was in 4th house with Mercury. So we took Venus to be positive, but it was 3rd and 12th Lord, I think. So functionally it was malefic.
I said, for promise, you see the natural benefic. So when a functional natural benefic is associated with 4th house, rather 2 benefics, did he have a good house or a bad house?
Good.
So it was doing a good job there.
Oh.
When it comes to the dasha, okay, now yes. Venus is functional malefic.
Okay, sir.
But it is 10th Lord also. And Venus, how you are telling Venus is a functional malefic? It is 4th Lord. It is yes, 4th Lord, sitting in 4th house.
Sir, but when they say like natural benefic is Kendra Lord, then it becomes malefic.
या किसने कहा है भाई?
सर
पराशर जी ने ये कहा है कि केंद्र लॉर्ड becomes neutral.
Okay, sir.
Now its association, further association, will make it benefic or malefic. भैया.
Okay, sir.
हाँ जी. Now this Venus, अभी मैं explain करता हूं आपको, और 4th Lord है, न्यूट्रल हो गया.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है.
Yes.
किसके साथ एसोसिएटेड है? विद ए बेनेफिक. मरकरी इज ए बेनेफिक. तो न्यूट्रल होके इट हैज टर्न्ड टू बेनेफिक. नाउ आई सी द हॉरोस्कोप एज ए फंक्शनल calculation. Mercury is 12th Lord and 3rd Lord. Not that serious malefic, but a malefic. Malefic houses. As 12th Lord, it is a sum. As 3rd Lord, it is a Trishadai Lord. So it again became malefic. So ultimate result is Venus is associated with a functional malefic. Right? So Venus becomes a malefic. But more result you are seeing because Venus is in Papa Kartari. So in Venus Dasha or Venus sub-periods, he remained in jail. Bad house. ठीक है भैया?
Yes, sir.
हाँ. It is not. It is astrology is step by step. I think at the start I said 18 things you have to check, almost. This is how you check. Now this functional things is seen in dasha calculation, timings, and natural is seen for your promise. Now if you see, sun is a natural, I will not say malefic, but a cruel planet. Okay? He is sitting alone in the house of a friend. Today's topic, I am again repeating, it is sitting in the house of a friend and not aspected by anybody. अब अवस्था भूल जाओ, किस तरह से इसको देखना है? Sun is sitting in a house of friend. This house is 5th house. Can we doubt his intelligence? 5th house. Can we doubt his children? Indira Gandhi पैदा करी because it is in a friend's house. अब मुझे अवस्था का नाम याद नहीं है, मैं देख रहा हूं भाई साहब ये 5वें घर में दोस्त के घर में सूर्य महाराज बैठे हुए हैं और सूर्य अच्छा देगा. Surya Dasha was good. Although he was in jail, he became PM in Moon. Before that, Sun was there. But getting prominence, using intelligence. ठीक है संजय जी? एक एक जो आज बताया है ना भाई, ये दिमाग में आपके अंदर बैठ जाना चाहिए. You don't have to remember like the name of the yoga or something. No, I don't remember. I simply remember how he will behave, where he is sitting, and only the natural ownership. Sun is a friend of Mars. Okay, he is sitting in a friend's house. मजा आ गया? खत्म हो गई बात. हाँ जी. हाँ, any other question? Make it simple, Sandhya ji. Don't make astrology complicated. Make it simple. हाँ, keep it simple. Like your way. हाँ 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 बोलिए.
सर एक बार केंद्राधिपति दोष समझा दीजिए.
यार बताया तो अभी मैंने आपको.
सर ठीक है, वही मतलब नेचुरल.
केंद्र अधिपति दोष, it becomes neutral. See its other lordship. See its association. Means I had said neutral is just like शुद्ध जल. पानी हो गया भाई साहब, कोई कलर नहीं है उसमें. Now which color he is getting? ठीक है भैया, वो सिर्फ देखना है हमें. अब जैसे है मरकरी इज ए नेचुरल बेनिफिक, तो ही विल हैव ए गुड हाउस. Venus is strengthened in its own sign. But Kendra Adhipati, he becomes Shuddha Jal. What is the other lordship? It is the 11th lord. Okay. So 11th house going to 4th. 11th lord means और बड़े लोग या बड़ा भाई, friends going to your house, sitting with a friend, so that friend has become strong. उसके साथ benefit है. So what he will do? he will take your property. फ्रेंड्स के पास चली गई ना प्रॉपर्टी, आनंद भवन वगैरह जो सारी प्रॉपर्टी थी, बड़ी बहनों ने, सिस्टर्स ने लिया, फिर उसको मेमोरियल बना दिया. If it was with a malefic, the property will not go out of you, because that 11th lord, that friend, has become weak. वो एनिमी के साथ है, काम नहीं कर पाएगा. इट इज वेरी सिंपल. सिर्फ ये देखो, अगर इसके साथ मंगल बैठा होता या शनि बैठा होता वीनस के साथ, तो हम कहते वीनस के साथ एक पाप ग्रह बैठा है, वो वीनस को वीक कर रहा है. जैसे मैं एग्जांपल देता हूं, आप अपने घर में बैठे हो और एक दुश्मन आकर के आपके साथ वहां बैठ गया, तो आप क्या कर नहीं सकते ना काम, फिर डरोगे ना. तो उसका अदर पर्पस था 11th गेन का, फ्रेंड्स का. वो गेन करने आया था, गेन नहीं कर पाएगा, अब गेन कर लिया, बिकॉज ही वाज द बेनिफिट. आप एस्ट्रोलॉजी में बोलोगे यार ये तो कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है, कि अगर शुभ ग्रह बैठा है 11th लॉर्ड के साथ तो आपकी प्रॉपर्टी मारी जाएगी. 11th लॉर्ड के साथ 4th में प्रॉपर्टी में शुभ ग्रह बैठा है, तो मैं कहता हूं प्रॉपर्टी मारी जाएगी. आप कहते हो यार वो तो कैसे मारी जाएगी, मेरे तो 4th में शुभ बैठा है. वो भाई साहब वो आ गया ना, वो लेने आया है ना, उसको दौड़ के आया है 11th से 4th में. अगर वहां उसको एनिमी मिल जाता, रेजिस्टेंस मिल जाता, तो वो अपना काम नहीं कर सकता था. सो इट इज नॉट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, इट इज अंडरस्टैंडिंग. जी
Sir, I'll probably just repeat it for our English audience also. I think.
Okay, I will speak in English only.
So, what sir was saying is that since the 11th lord has come into the 4th house, and
he has come to your property,
it is coming to your property, and if it is sitting with a benefic, the property is taken away. But
yes,
if it is sitting with a malefic, the property will not go to any other, because the malefic is going to obstruct the 11th house, 11th lord sitting in the 4th house. So, Marina, is that understood now, or do you want little more explanation?
No, for Marina, let me again repeat. My purpose of repeating these avastas, dashas, was that how a planet behaves. You have to assess whether he is in a friend's house, enemy house, etc., etc. And then what is the association? And who is he? That I explained. 11th is a friend or your elder brother, sister, anybody. They will take away. Okay. Who is he? And how he is, and he is under what circumstances? Right? Yes. Like in a daily life, like I will say, whether if I know Sandhya, can I ask her for 1,000 rupees? I want to go and see a movie, eat in a hotel. I should know her, whether she will give me or not. Until I know her, I cannot assess. If she is with an enemy, she cannot do the work. I will not get the money. Okay, next.
So, Dharamjit, this is question by Dharamjit. How to identify a strong kundli? How to identify a strong chart that means successful in material world? Many a times there are no extraordinary placements in the chart, but still person is successful.
He has said materially. Okay? Because if you say what is a successful chart, I will say every chart is a successful. Okay? Materially, you have to identify which house or houses I call material chart, material houses. What I consider, like if I say money is successful chart, then you see second and 11th house. I have told you how to examine it. 11th house is your gains. So 11th house, a good planet is sitting there. Benefic is aspecting you. Last time in Dasha, I said trines are always benefic. I gave you that basic principles. So analyze that house. See, a chart, you cannot have a one-point analysis. Each house has to be analyzed. Each house should be analyzed and please, my suggestion is for any analysis, do not try to take Kundali as a whole. Take it piece by piece, one house by one house, and then analyze. Whatever you want to see step by step. Do not generalize it. In general, if you go to any Pandit or any this thing, he will say, see the yoga, all these things. No, don't. See the yoga, okay. But analyze this chart house by house, please. Okay. When you are learning astrology, learn it. This is the way to learn. If you tell me, you ask me, see sir, how is my chart? I said, balls it, yeah, go. What do you want to do? Why should I analyze the complete chart? Tell me what you want. You want profession? Okay. Let us see 10th house. And then proceed. That house will tell you everything about profession. Yes. Hanji, Dharamjit ji, do it. See your 11th house or 2nd house. See Dhanyo.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Yeah.
Sir, I think we have kind of covered most of the question from
Yes.
the chat thing. Now, the only thing which is there with us is the bhadak.
Bhadak. Okay. Okay. See, bhadak. The word given is bhadak. That is which obstructs. बाधा डालता है किसी भी चीज में. And who are bhadaks? For a movable lagna, 11th lord is the bhadak. For a fixed lagna, ascendant, 9th lord is the bhadak. And for dual lagna, the 7th lord is bhadak. This is the definition. Where he will cause obstruction. My question is that. And for each type of lagna, these are the bhadaks. So for a horoscope, we have pointed out one planet and we say he is bhadaka. अब हमें ये देखना है where he will cause bada. Because sometimes people say, yeah, his Rajyog Dasha was running and he expired, he died. But Rajyog means Rajyog. It is not stopping death. Dhanyog की दशा थी, मर गया. ठीक है यार. His death dasha also came. So that is why I get confused how to use bhadaka. Bhadak has to be identified with avayog. Bad yogas in the horoscope. Will he cause badha in bad yoga also? Then it is good for me. Or will he cause badha only in good yogas? भाई ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है ये. What is the role of bhadak? And practically speaking, till date, in my all readings, I have never used bhadak. मैं यूज ही नहीं करता. I use it as 11th Lord. I use it as 9th Lord. Somewhere, some big astrologers, gurus, they give the explanation that a bhadak should be related with Kendradhipati dosh. Most of the authors, that if the bhadak is Kendradhipati dosh also, becomes a bad planet, then he is fully bhadak. Like in Jawaharlal Nehru, Char Lagna, Venus is bhadak and Kendradhipati, both. But did you find any problem about Venus causing bhadak yoga? This dasha never came. No, it came. It came in the youth. He was born, I think, in Mercury or Saturn dasha. So, what was the bhadak? Was he bhadak towards his journey towards prime ministership? That was the period of independence struggle, Venus period. ठीक है sir? So I use it as a Lord only. I think पांड्या जी मेरे पास इससे बहुत ज्यादा कोई एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं है बाधक का. Because I am confused. I have not found a use of this.
Correct.
So take it as, now many people, they say, if your badhak is badly placed, it gives good result. Okay, let us see. Okay. Like in K.N. Rao's chart, Sun is badhak, 11th Lord, and it is placed in 12th house, badly placed in Rahu Ketu axis, or mar gaya. So Badhak is not able to give bad results. Okay, I agree. He was in a government job. Sun is not showing bad effect of government service. But people write that Sun, even not people, the classics write Bhadak in 12th house gives long life, 100 years. Gives a life of 100 years. Why? I am not able to connect it. See, मेरे पास भाई, I have got only my studies with reason. No, I don't have a supernatural power, which they have written. So I am not able to understand that how a bhadak under bad situation, bad placement gives a long life. But it is happening. Rao Sahib is already about 86. So please, I think I am not at ease to explain further. This is how I take bhadaks. For dual sign, I take 7th. Now suppose, if the bhadak is aspecting the bhadak house, see, these thoughts are growing in my mind. Will he spoil the house? The bhadak house? Suppose for a fixed sign, say Scorpio, moon is bhadak, and moon is bloody well placed there in own sign, 9th house, will he spoil the father? No, he will elevate the father, because 9th lord sitting in 9th. If there is no malefic aspect, he will elevate. If there is a malefic aspect, then lord and the bhadak and the sign both are afflicted. Then he will spoil it. So in conclusion, I can say, if the bhadak is under malefic association, it will spoil the house. If it is under benefic association, it will elevate the house. It will be good for the house. That is the role. So bhadak also is to be seen as placement, as a lord of house, whether it is in enemy sign, friend sign, etc., etc. Right, sir?
Yes, sir. I think this answers Preeti Ji's question also. So she is saying that Leo Lagna Mars is Vadak as well as Yokarka. So I think you have explained it that if it has a benefic association, then it's a benefic. Otherwise, if it has association, it can probably cause damage to the house.
Yes, yes. Now for Leo, she is rightly pointed out. See, a very contradictory situation. We call it a Yogkarak also and a Bhadak also. Take it as a house lord and proceed. Hanji Pandya.
Then there is a question on Avyogi and Dagd Rashi.
No. Go to जिन्होंने लिखा है, नाम भूल रहा हूँ,
शेषाद्री
अय्यर साहब ने. अब you can't talk to him because he is no more. But that theory, I have the books, but I have not applied it. No, I am plain. I don't boast. Yeah, I have read almost everything, but I can't remember everything. And you cannot tell others until you are fully conversant, you have learned it and you are confident. Then only you can talk. Otherwise, you will give hazy answers. You will not be true. Like I said, Bhadak, I have not used it. I have used it straight away as a lord of the house and the house lord. That's all. And our general principles. Pandyaji, one thing you can take some questions, but one thing I tell you, I have to go to some ceremony at 1 o'clock. So I will get ready.
Sure.
In the family.
Sure.
Hanji.
Sir, I think there are like few more questions, and I think
Yes.
we are kind of almost done. So, should we take? Okay, so this is this is a question on outer planets. So, shall we consider Uranus and all these planets in mundane?
No, in our Hindu astrology, they have not said, so we do not consider. They have mentioned it, Varamir, etc. They have mentioned these planets, but they have not used it in prediction.
Then this is a question about why is it that divisional charts don't have things like D5 and D26? I think it is question about why we don't have D5, why we don't have D26.
Yes,
My dear
Ji,
friend,
I framed it correctly.
you can create your own divisional charts, any number of divisional charts, like up to D30 also, 300, right? Can I ask you one question, Dharamjit ji? Why in Vimshotri Dasha, Sun is given 6 years, Venus is given 20 years?
No idea, sir.
No idea. So, D5, people have devised it, but why Parashar has not given this, like Vimshotri Dasha, I think we have to go to Parashar ji and ask him that why he used only 16 charts, main chart and 15 other divisional charts. And he has covered all ambient, all things, like how we use these charts. See, I feel I have some knowledge of divisional charts, right? Because I have written a book also on that. How many people had understood about D27? How many people understand D30? Parasharji has written for D27 that this is seen for strength of a person. I made use of that, and I said, if it is strength, it can be weakness also. So why not we make use of this divisional chart to pinpoint the weakness in a body, in a horoscope? And I've written a book on that.
Wow.
Medical. Locate disease. And we have tried it on more than 1,000 horoscopes in the last 3 years.
Fantastic.
I've got a collection of 500 horoscopes of body disease.
Fantastic.
Hmm?
Great work, sir. Pranam.
So, Parasharji has covered everything. How we use D16? Have we used D16? It is a chart of happiness.
Okay.
Suddenness. It gives sudden happiness. So anyone who wins lottery or a sudden gain from somewhere, कि नानी मर गई, पता भी नहीं था, she left such a huge property for me. That is from D16.
Wow.
So these charts, what Parasharji has given, covers a fantastic area. Almost all answers. They were genius. तो इसलिए भैया इनका तो D5 क्यों नहीं लिया मैं नहीं बता सकता, या D26 से क्या देखूंगा, फर्स्टली क्या देखूंगा, हाउ टू कास्ट इट,
जी सर।
दैट इज ऑल्सो ए प्रॉब्लम.
Sir, next is about
Thank you.
Pushkar Navmansh.
Yeah, we are all in these rubbish things. We are not making use of it. We try to remember huge amount, huge volumes. Those who have mentioned Pushkar Navamsha, ask them, any practical application has they given? पटेल साहब ने लिखा है बहुत जोरों से. How I use Pushkar Navamsha, the gist of Pushkar Navamsha is that when a planet occupies a benefic Navamsha, all the Pushkar Navamshas, they are all benefic Navamshas. So they will give good result. But my dear friends, first understand what to see from Navamsha and how to see it. Then I will make it. If you have the general knowledge of astrology that a planet in benefic sign, benefic Navamsha, gives benefic result. What is bloody benefic sign? Is a sign of Jupiter falling in 6th house is a benefic sign. भैया आज जो पढ़ाया है मैंने आपको जो बताया है, I have given you the gist कि किस तरह से ये सिस्टम डिवाइस हुआ है, टूल्स कैसे डिवाइस हुए हैं. Understand that and apply it. It will come. It will cover everything. So what Pushkar Navamsha will do? How to see? Okay, I will give you one parting hint. Very big tip. The birth horoscope of a person and the sign and houses, lords, lordship, is fixed in the birth horoscope. It carries on in all divisional charts. It can be applied in all divisional chart. Like a 6th lord of your birth chart, suppose in D10, it goes to 10th house or Lagna, it will give some disputes in your profession because it is a sign of dispute. It is a lord of dispute. If it goes to 7th house in Navamsha or in the Lagna of Navamsha, husband and wife will have dispute. लड़ाई होगी होगी. ठीक है भैया? It is fixed for all divisional chart, for all matters. They have their role there also in the divisional chart. Of course, you can treat divisional chart as a complete chart. No problem. You can still, but this will also have a role. This will modify it. ठीक है भाई साहब?
Yes, sir. I think we have covered all the questions. I'll probably final. Last time we are asking, do we have any further questions before we close the session?
ठीक है.
So thank you, sir.
I think
it was
thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you. बहुत बहुत
Thanks a
प्रणाम
lot,
सर,
sir. Pranam.
बहुत बहुत प्रणाम.
धन्यवाद धन्यवाद